the biggest thing for me, when it comes to, people like yourself that are aspiring artists is like the risk taking. And I think the biggest kind of obstacle for people is the fear, right? Like the fear is like, I want to do this, and then you give yourself a million reasons why not to do it, right? Like how do you kind of, one, work with your mind on convincing yourself that you're making the right decision and just, keeping the more optimistic point of view?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, number one, I think you gotta love it, right? Like that's the biggest thing. You just gotta love it. I remember falling in love with hip hop music and I loved it. If you do anything, you have to love it. Whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a business owner, you're a fitness person.
Yeah.
And I also think having a support system is important also. I think having that positivity where, if maybe you didn't have the best day or maybe if you facing a specific challenge, you have someone that can give you advice, someone that can be there to pick you up, to motivate you. Because if I didn't have a good support system, I don't know how far I would be going along with this, right? So if you were just completely alone, like you might not really do it.
What's up, guys? Today we're doing something a little bit different. Actually more original than usually from what we've done in the past. But obviously, Stay Tranquilo was started off with a different pod than we've been doing lately. Obviously, the sports has been a big priority for us. So our core was always having conversations with authentic creators, whether that's in business, that's in the music space, that's athletes, whatever, your level of creation is. Something that I always enjoyed because I consume them a lot is podcasts that provide value, right? So I've known Oscar here for a few years now, and I thought what better way to kind of kickstart this podcast again. I think the last time we recorded something like this is when we recorded the ones with Lauda and Victoria, which was something around like Hispanics and just kind of that culture. But that's been a while now. So I wanted to bring this back, and I want to bring this back regular because I think these are podcasts that provide a lot of value. I think they're also entertaining because you never know what's going to really come out of these. But it's a lot of storytelling that goes into all of this. And to me, that's the best piece of content that you could put out there, right? Because we all have something different to offer, even though we might be similar, we might have different paths, but we all might have like the same journey. I think there's also a different story and different perspective to give. And I think perspective gives people hope and gives people kind of something to lean on. Facts. So that's why I wanted to bring this back. And I think, having Oscar here is a great way to kick it off. So
it's a pleasure
Oscar,
to be here.
Yeah. Cheers, bro. It's good to have you on. I'm glad we're doing this. Oscar and I go back to our Fit to Run days, which we actually recorded an episode, I think it was 2020.
2020, pre-COVID.
Right? Pre-COVID. And it was when Oscar was starting off his music career, and, we'll get into the background of everything. But that started way back in the day, and it was one of the first podcasts that I did for the Stay Tranquilo podcast. I think I recorded that one on my phone, and I had one USB mic, and obviously now our setup is completely different. We have a great space here that we're able to use. We got lights, we got Pooch on the camera, and I was listening to the podcast on the way here, and I was like, damn, bro, we've evolved, and it almost sometimes you forget that a little bit in the process, where you're just like, go, and you're pushing yourself like, am I really doing the right thing? Am I getting better? Yeah. And I was listening to that podcast, and it was probably a good podcast, and people probably got something out of it. But I also realized, I'm like, damn, one, I've matured a lot since then in terms of like the things I was talking about in that podcast, some of the things that maybe were important at that time that are not so important today, and just where we are as a business and as a person. I think we evolve a lot, and growth. I'm sure exactly, and I'm sure you have too. So I want to go back a little bit, but I also want to kind of start off more of like where you're at right now. Tell the people what you're doing, you know, so that people know. I'm sure we have a couple new listeners now, but
For sure.
what are you doing nowadays in the music world? And you know, we'll rewind from there.
Yeah, definitely. OG97, making music, hip hop, rap music. Been dropping music consistently since we did that podcast. I was probably one of the.
Well, so that podcast, you had just released
my
the
first project.
album the day before.
Yeah, my first project. So I was 4 years ago. So we've been doing this for 4 years, and like you said, it's been a consistent growth. And a lot of times when you're on that growth, you don't really look back, and it's good to look back. Like, damn, we really did come a long way. And you know, right now, currently, just continuing to release, continuing to grow, and you know, trying to represent something and trying to make music that people could relate to and live by also.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we spoke about on the last podcast too was like how music is an art. And I think that's something that's really true, right? Because what music you may like and I might be very different, and it's for completely different reasons, right? It might hit you a little bit different. You know, there's just something about the feel of it, the lyrics. I mean, there's so much that goes, the beats, right? There's so much that goes into it, yet you have an emotional connection to the music. And obviously that's why some of the biggest artists today, I mean, they've created an emotional connection with the masses, right? But, you know, whether that's through podcasting, whether that's through music, whatever that outlet may be, there's a level of connection between you and the listener, right? And I mean, your numbers are impressive. Like,
thank you.
The things that you've been able to do. I'm sure there's aspiring artists out there that would see those numbers and be like, damn, I want to be able to do that.
Definitely. I try to, you know, be an inspiration for people who are starting off and are new. Try to give them advice, try to show them that, you know, this is something that you could do if you put in the work. And I still got a long way to go.
Of course.
We still got a long way to go.
We're nowhere near where we want to be.
We're
like you
we're
said,
not
evolving.
where we want to be, but we're not where we started at.
Exactly.
So it's continuous.
Absolutely. So let's actually go back, right? Because I think you brought up a good point, right? There's people that look up to you, and if you can give back while you're still on your journey, right? Just like it doesn't matter if you're up here or you're down here, right? There's always someone here and there's always someone here, and you might be somewhere in the middle, right? So whatever you can give, I think, is always valuable. You've been doing this music now, I get, you know, since that day, 4 years, right? What is something that you've learned in the last 4 years? Two things that you've learned maybe, right? One, on the personal level, right? Like, what is something that you've learned personally just as a human? And then secondly, as a musician, what have you learned?
Man, that's a good question. I think personally, what I've learned is, you know, by doing music, it's almost like a look inside. It's a lot of reflection. I think my music is very self-reflective, self-analytical. It's almost like a mirror, right? Like I'm talking about experiences in my life that I hope people can relate to, because we've all had similar experiences. So I think looking internally as to, you know, why am I this way? Why am I that way? Like, the music's almost like therapy. I've never done therapy. I think I'm a big advocate for people to do therapy. Of course.
And I think there's a lot of different ways to have a version of therapy.
Outlet. Exactly. So with music, it's just, you know, when you're writing these songs and it's just looking inwards, like, man, you know, growing as a person, like, I'm not where I was before. And having a different perspective, a different maturity level from where we were 4 years ago. I think that's important person-wise. And then, I mean, musically, what I would say musically, one thing that I thought about recently, and it kind of ties into that, I guess it's like maybe the theme of the podcast. I was listening to one of my old songs on the drive home yesterday, and I was like, man, I really like this song. It's one of my favorite personal songs. And I was thinking, you know, wow, like, I wish I could make that song again. Right, because I like the song so much, and I'm thinking like, man, I've asked one of my producers, like, can you make a beat similar to this? You know, can I talk about a similar subject? And I started realizing I can't make what I made 3 years ago, 4 years ago, because I'm in a different place now. I'm a different person, a different artist, different experience, different tone, different perspective. So as much as I like the old music, I just have to appreciate it for what it is.
It's not who you are right now.
It's not who I am right now, and I gotta just keep looking forward and keep progressing. Even though the sounds might be different, sometimes it's good to hear an old song and it's nostalgic, and man, that was a good moment, but now we're focused on newer moments. And I think that's one thing that I realized, which was big as an artist. You hear a lot of fans always like, oh, I miss the old Kanye, I miss the old Drake, right?
It's true, it's true. And that's a good point, because you do look at these artists, and it doesn't even matter what genre, right? Like, you look at an artist and the albums that they come out with, and you're like, damn, that was a different person than this person is today. I mean, we've seen it with Drake, where he's gone through his emotional side, more sentimental albums, and then Drake's living his best life, and he's dropping like more of like a party style album,
Savage and stuff.
Exactly, and it really showcases the seasonalities of the journeys of life.
Seasonalities, yeah, it's different seasons, and we gotta adapt to the seasons, because if you don't adapt, then you might get left behind.
Yeah,
and none of us want to get left behind.
So what season would you consider yourself to be in right now?
Man, that's a good question. You always ask a good question.
It's that magic mind.
Yeah,
that magic mind gets you good.
I'm gonna have to get on that.
we'll get into it.
I think right now, I've done a lot of reflecting, right? And I think like my first year releasing music, it was like just an introduction, right? Like, oh, like look, I'm making something.
Yeah.
I think my second year was like, okay, like he's making something, but it's pretty good. Like you could actually listen to this, you could ride to it. And I think my third year was a lot of like, okay, this is OG97, like the sound. This is his story, this is him as an artist. So I think now, year 4, my season now, I think I'm just trying to go hard and just like really, really like dive into what I am, which is a rapper at the end of the day. Like I want to go and I just want to rap and prioritize the lyrics, prioritize the wordplay, the flow, the delivery. Kind of taking it back to the essence. I think a lot about, athletes, for example. Like you think about someone like Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving, like they just want to go on the court and they just want to hoop. They just want to put buckets up. And there's more that goes into it, but that's what it is at its purest form. So I'm trying to tap into what hip hop is into the most pure form. I think that's my season right now. And
do you think that hip hop has changed, so it's almost kind of forced you to change a little bit? Because obviously, 90s hip hop was one thing, 2000s hip hop, 2010, now we're in what seems to be a completely different era of music.
It's very different.
And do you feel you've had to kind of adapt, I guess you could say, or kind of like change your flow or whatever that might be, so that you can kind of fit the narrative of what's going on in the world of music?
I'm glad you bring that up, because when it comes to, the trends and everything that's going on now, I think the younger me was taking that into consideration a little bit more. And then I started thinking like, I just have to make what I like, and what I enjoy, because that's gonna make it the funnest process.
Right, true.
And what I put out, whether the listeners enjoy it or not, like that's me to my truest form. I kind of think about doing analogies, but for example, Christopher Nolan, one of my favorite directors, he's not really making a movie thinking, okay, what is the audience gonna think about this? Are they gonna like it or they're not gonna like it? He's just gonna try to make the best movie that he can.
True.
Whether it's Oppenheimer, Inception, Interstellar, he's just trying to make the best movie that he can. And then the people who enjoy it, love it. The people who don't, okay, on to the next. But I think that's really my focus now, where I just want to be the best version of me as an artist.
Yeah, and I think the authentic side comes out of you, right? When you're doing something that's not you, right? That doesn't bring you that joy, like you said. It kind of almost feels forced, and it's expressed that way, right? So people see it and it's like they may not realize it's not authentic, but something about it just seems off. It's like it's not there. Whereas what's you is you. It flows, right? It comes out and it's natural. And when it's natural, it's almost more eye appealing to whoever
they could tell when it's natural.
Exactly. It's just one of those things that it just looks more pure and it looks authentic, and people gravitate to authenticity without maybe even knowing that, right? I think it's almost hard to distinguish. You only probably know better than anyone else whether you're being authentic or not.
That's a fact.
On the outside, they may not know, yet naturally they're going to gravitate to things that are authentic, right? Without maybe really knowing, but they're like, you know what? That guy's good, right? Yeah. And they don't really know, like, hey, he might have done this, he might have tried this, but you know what? That was you in your most natural state.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, one perspective also is with the music and with the podcast, right? Yeah. Someone may not be a fan of hip hop music or a fan of my style of music, but I think they could still recognize like, yo, he's authentic. And they might not be a fan of the music, but they might be a fan of you as a creator, as an artist. I think it could be the same with like your podcast, right? Maybe there's someone who's not into sports and they don't want to tune in and listen to a sports podcast. but they could recognize and be like, wait a second, like this is something good.
Yeah.
This is someone who's passionate. This is someone that's pushing a positive message, and they'll still be a fan, even if they're not a fan of the content itself. They're a fan of you as a person.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a good point, because me being the decision maker on some of these things, right? When I went up, I always wanted to say, obviously this is my core, and it almost hurt me to like get away from my core almost, right? Because these are the type of dialogues that I do genuinely like to have, right? Just deep conversations, getting into the truth, right? The truth, and then providing value as as much as I can as a listener, right? Because on the other side, I consume a lot of podcasts, and I like to learn. I like to learn. I like to hear people's stories. I like to grasp different perspectives from people that are successful, whether that's financially, spiritually, physically, whatever that might be. I want to learn from them, because they're doing it, right? They're not perfect, right? And I think that's where the beauty of it is. It's like, I know they're not perfect. They're just a human, just like I am, but they're still able to do it. They usually are overcoming some crazy stories, right? So that was always why this was like my bread and butter. I want to be able to do this so I can give those stories and give a platform to maybe yourself, whether it's this big or this big, at least it's still someone, right? Because people will listen, and people will say, you know what, I needed that. And even if you help 3, 4, 5 people, like that's big.
Because then those 3 or 4 or 5 people might help another 3 or 4 or 5, and those 3 or 4, and it just
it's
multiplies.
a ripple effect. It's a ripple effect. And going to your point about the sports podcast, like, for me, that was big, because I've always been a guy that just loves sports, and I didn't want to just be one-dimensional. I wanted to be, Stay Tranquilo it's not about me, but you know what? I want to do the things that I enjoy. I enjoy talking sports. Me and Dave, we go on there and we'll just shoot the shit for an hour talking Dolphins. Dolphins lost, but we'll find the next thing to talk about, right? Like golf. I enjoy golf, so I'm going to be able to talk about golf. And you know what? The doors will open for you. Things will line up, because you're doing things that are true, authentic to you, right? And the universe will say, you want to do this? All right, let's do it, right? And it'll open the first door, and the next door, and the next door, which I'm sure by you just taking that leap of faith, right? Because that's what it is, right? Like, you have to put yourself in that uncomfortable situation, because it's easier said than done to do these things sometimes. But you got yourself in the right mental space to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this. Whatever happens, happens, right? Because you really don't know what's on the other side when you make that decision.
Nobody does.
But you knew that you wanted to do this, and I'm sure doors along the way have opened up for you.
And they keep opening up,
I mean, what like your numbers now are what? Like, most stream song is up to what?
I think my biggest song right now is probably like close to 400,000.
Imagine that, dude. Imagine you producing something, and it's funny because you just released that album that day when we recorded. You were like, I don't know what this is gonna do. Like, I wanted to create an album on this. Fast forward 4 years, 400,000 people on one song.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That's wild.
It's pretty crazy, yeah.
That's wild. Like, when you look at things like from that perspective, you'd be like, maybe. I'm doing something right if I got 400,000 downloads on a song.
It's definitely serious, and a lot of times we're in the chase and we don't appreciate the little moments. So now I think I try to okay, we're driving, our foot's on the gas, but let me slow down real quick and acknowledge where I've been on this journey. Okay, I could let it sink in, and let's keep moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fine line of not finding too much comfort in the journey when things are going great and things like that. But also enjoying the process of the journey and where you are right now, through the highs and lows, right? I love reading, and one of the things that's been a consistent theme in some of the books that I've been reading is like, you don't want to get too high and you don't want to get too low, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't enjoy the process and you can't enjoy the journey, right?
That's a fact.
You enjoy the good things for what they are, but you don't cling to them, you don't stay attached to them, right? Because that same good thing is gone the next day, right?
It can be gone
quick.
Like
how you want to you won the World Series, right? That moment is full of joy. You're extremely grateful for that moment. You worked your butt off as a team to get there. But guess what? Next year, that World Series is over, right? So it's like, what are you going to do? Just win that one World Series and be done? No.
You got to keep going.
It's the next thing. It's the next. And it's not where you don't appreciate that moment because you appreciate the hell out of that moment. But that moment comes and goes, and there's the next moment, and the next moment. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring you, good or bad. But you got to be able to continue to move forward because that's what life's all about. You're not guaranteed tomorrow, right? So that's what makes life so special because you have the choice to do whatever the hell you want to do with your life, you know? And I think that in itself is valuable, and I think that's the biggest thing we forget about in the journey of all of it. Because like you said, we're just go, but we completely forgot to enjoy today.
Especially in this city too. This city's fast.
Don't even go there.
And I think, you mentioned the World Series, and one quote that I really like is the reward for hard work is more hard work. It's only gonna get harder. And it's good. If you're working hard, guess what's left on your table? You're just gonna have to work harder now. Yeah. And I that's something that always sticks to me.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. So obviously doing this for 4 years now, right? Like what has been your motivator, right? Obviously it's tough, right? Like you obviously have ambitious goals as an artist and you want to obviously be successful in that space. But what are some of the motivators in the process of being a creator and just kind of identifying what the next move is?
Yeah, I think as a motivator, I mean, obviously there's motivators in just life in general. Yeah. Like my family, my mom, my dad, my girl, they're all huge supporters, my friends.
Which is huge.
Those are motivators. They're going to motivate me no matter what. You know what I mean? If I stop doing music, they're still going to motivate me. I think for music specific, one of the biggest motivators is, every now and then when you just get a random message from a fan and they're like, hey, I really like this song. Hey, like I listen to this song when I'm working out. Hey, I listen to this song on my drive to school, on my drive to college. Hey, I listen to this song on my break from work. Like wherever they're listening to music, it's like, man, like this is something that you could live to. Yeah. I know like what an impact my favorite artists had on me. Right. They had a huge impact on my life. They were like the soundtrack to me growing up. And for me to be able to provide that to certain people, that's one of the biggest motivators. Like I know I gotta continue releasing music because there's people that are waiting for it. They're waiting for it and they want the next OG97 song, the next OG97 project. So that's one of the biggest motivators that keep me going.
What's the craziest like fan message you've ever gotten or outreach?
Oh man, craziest,
like coolest.
Oh man, I had one that was I forgot about this. It's crazy because you bringing it up and my memory just thinking. I was getting these messages consistent and like it comes on your request on IG because it's not, they might follow you, don't follow them. So I like look through my requests, okay, a couple DMs and then okay, boom, boom, boom. And I see one guy who sent like 7 messages and I'm like, okay, like what profile is this? And he's sending videos, selfie videos, and he was in jail. He was in prison. And you know how in prison they can sneak a little phone in or whatever. So he's like, yo, like I found your music's hard. He's like, when I get out of jail, like, we gotta collaborate.
Wow.
And I was like...
How long ago was this?
That might have been like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I was like, I had completely forgot about it. You just brought it up. I remember my friends were like, oh, you might have to put some money on his commissary or something like that. I should have got more information. Maybe I could pull the DM up now. I was just like, hey, man, thank you for your support. Thank you for being a fan. And I wish you the best. I hope you get out soon, right? I didn't want to dive too deep into the situation.
Of course not. There's layers to everything.
Yeah, but that was a crazy message.
That is crazy.
Shout out to my homie that was locked up and sent that message.
Hopefully you're out and you're still listening to OG's music. But damn, dude, that's wild.
That one was crazy.
That's wild. So you write all the lyrics for your music?
Everything. Wow. I would say 99.99% because I might get like a lyric here and there from a homie. Like if we're in the studio right now.
Is that still common in today's age where artists are still writing their music? Or you hear like things about ghostwriters and...
Yeah, I think right now it's
a little bit of both?
Yeah, I think it's a 50-50. I know there are some artists who are writing everything completely and I know there's some artists who are getting their stuff written for them. To each their own. I think if you're releasing music, it's your story. Right. I can't have someone else write my story.
True.
I can have someone assist me, right? Like I might have a line where I'm stuck on. I'll be like, hey, Andre, like what rhymes with whiskey? And then you'll give me a couple things that rhyme with whiskey. And
then your head starts being like, you know what? That could work.
Exactly. I might collaborate with someone on like a lyric, an edit, but for the most part, it's everything me writing. I think that's, one of the more challenging aspects is, I write the music, I record the music,
Yeah.
I create the
That's
cover
part
art,
of being,
promote the
you
music.
know,
I'm sure
small.
you know how it is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
you wear a lot of hats.
you have some help, like
Of course, exactly.
he's helping you out, right? You
100%.
have people that can assist you, but at the end of the day, with
You're
your
not
brand,
gonna be. The reality is, as you grow, you're not gonna be able to do it yourself.
You
But
can't.
also, you're gonna have to do shit that you have to figure out on your own. You know,
that
like
nobody else could do but you.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
So
you don't have that luxury.
But for writing, yeah, I write all my stuff myself, and you know, I try to write consistently. I feel like I write in segments. I don't really sit down and write like a whole song in one sitting. I think I just.
Are you better like during the day or at night when it comes to writing? Because there's some people where like their creative juice is like firing in the mornings. There's some that they're just better at night, or are you just like?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit of both, and you know, daytime, nighttime, whatever comes to mind, I write it. I've been getting now into where I won't really like. I'll write as I go, where like I'll have a beat, I'll have an idea where I want to go with it, and I'll just hop on the mic and say the first thing. It's kind of like a mix of freestyling and writing. I'm not going completely freestyling the song, but I'll freestyle certain sections, and then I'll go back to it and fill it in. Like, okay, I'm missing 2 lines here, I'm missing 4 lines here. Let me sit down and write what I'm missing, and then kind of piece it together like that. Because one of my biggest things as an artist, and one thing I preach to all other artists, if any artists are listening to this, I think the first take, the first thought that comes, I think is always the best. I feel like you can't spend too much time editing it, because what came out from the first moment is like what the universe wanted you to say. And Virgil, the designer from Off-White, he has like this theory, I think it's like a 3% theory, where he says when you're creating something, you should only edit it 3%. Right? If we're making this whiskey glass and boom, this is a whiskey glass that's presented, okay, if we're gonna change it, it might just be needed to change, you know, maybe the thickness of it, or maybe change the size of it, but a very minor change. The first idea that you come up with, a lot of times in art at least, the first idea tends to be the best, at least I think so.
No, I could see that, because then what starts happening is you start getting in your head, and you know, this thought starts coming up, this thought starts coming up, and then you're playing like almost like a tug of war battle with yourself.
Paralysis.
Exactly.
You're analyzing and you're paralyzed from analyzing. So
exactly. No,
I think, you know, the universe is free flowing. When we have these conversations, we're not too calculated when we have these conversations. With any conversation you have in life is like that, and I think when you're creating, it should have that perspective too. Yeah,
no, it's true. And when you get in your head, you know, you can kind of get lost in a completely different direction, and then, you know, you go down a rabbit hole, basically. So I definitely been there. So for you, right, when you're going through that kind of like process of writing the music, producing the music, can you kind of like go through what that, from inception of a song to release of a song, what does that process kind of look like?
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever answered this question, so I'm sure some people.
I'm genuinely curious, right? And I'm sure, like, you know, for aspiring people out there, like they want to know, because like how the hell do you get a song on Spotify, right?
And everyone works differently too. I mean, for me, I'm constantly listening to beats, right? Like I'm always, you know, having producers either send me beats through email, or I'm on YouTube looking up beats, and I'm just always trying to find the beats that I like, the beats that fit my sound. So that takes a big part of it. Once I have a beat that I like, right away I know what I want to say. I know the topic of the song. I know the chorus of the song. It just comes like lightning in a bottle. And then from there, it's the recording process, right? Where I mentioned it, you know, I might go a little bit off the top of the head, write a little bit, mix it up, record the song, engineer the song, and then I always like having opinions, so I have like my trusted people in my circle that I'm like, okay, like, check out this song, what do you think? And get their feedback on the song, and from there, when it's time to release, it's, you know, planning the content, planning the cover art, which to me is very important. I want to make sure that when people see the artwork, it's captivating. And then, you know, are we gonna do a music video? Are we gonna shoot a reel for this? Are we gonna, you know, what type of content? Where are we gonna shoot it? What outfit? And then putting it up. I mean, I have a distributor. You might have a distributor too, right? I use DistroKid. I don't know who you have as a distributor.
We were using Anchor. Actually, just Actually, just changed it to a site called Transitor.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can house, now that we have multiple shows, I can
Yeah,
house
you
all
can
my shows
segment it.
under one account, basically.
Yeah, so I have my distributor, I put it up, and I try to release it. I try not to sit on a song too long. Some people, you know, they treat their song like their babies, which
Yeah.
it is your baby,
Of
but
course.
you want your baby to grow. You
But
can't
get
just
it
keep
out
the
there,
song
because
for
you
a
never
year.
know. How many times have you heard the stories of like, dude, I honestly wasn't gonna release that song, and then it was
It
like,
came out and it's their biggest song ever. All the time. So I try not to hold on to the song too much. I just, you know, once it's ready to release, once we have all the creative for it,
Yeah.
put it out. And, you know, while that song is being out, and while that song is being promoted, already working on the next one.
Yeah.
Or the next one. I mean, I tell a lot of my artist friends when they're starting off, like, you don't want to release a song until you have more saved, because creativity comes and goes.
you mentioned that in the last one too.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Some things never change, right? So
Yeah,
I always
you
want to
did.
make sure I have a vault, right? It's like if you're gonna go and, you know, open a kitchen or open a restaurant,
Yeah.
like you're not just gonna have one type of ingredient and that's it. Like,
Right.
no, you're gonna have a whole stock.
Yeah.
So I try to keep a whole stock of ideas, because if I go a month and a half with no inspiration, I can't just go a month and a half
Right.
putting out nothing. Like,
Yeah.
I still have to have.
You gotta have something. You gotta have something to put out there.
But that's pretty much how the process works.
Okay, I didn't know that about the distributor. It makes sense. That's exactly how
Yeah.
the podcast world is, and that
Yeah.
makes sense.
The
But
audio world is
yeah.
similar.
It makes sense. Music's always been intriguing for me. I'm nowhere near. I don't even know what the word is. Talented
A
in the music.
connoisseur, a music connoisseur.
No, I am, but not like
Yeah.
that. Like,
No, you've
I've
always had
definitely
good
grown to
taste. I
appreciate
remember back
it.
in the day, you always had good taste.
I've definitely grown to appreciate it. I think that's a big part of my
Yeah.
music appreciation journey. You know, I never really had anyone there kind of like teaching me about music.
We would always be showing each other songs.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
check this out,
yeah.
check this out, check this out.
I knew about every album during that time,
Yeah.
every artist during that
Yeah.
time. I mean, now I've kind of, I don't listen to too much hip hop, but I don't really listen to too much music anymore either. I do, you know, when I'm in the gym or I want to vibe and things like that. But I'm not like staying too up to date. I do consume a fuck ton of podcasts now. And,
Podcasts are good, man.
And the only time when I'm really listening to music is either it's background noise and I'm working, right? Or I'm in the gym and it's more like get me up and energized.
But you want to know what I would say
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, I hate to sound like an old head, but I feel like back then music maybe was a little bit better, or at least a little bit more effort. I feel like nowadays with a podcast,
Mm-hmm. I don't listen to anything new either. I listen to a lot of old stuff.
The old stuff?
2000s hip hop is usually what I'm listening to. 90s, you know, that's.
Bro, I saw a stat that it said last year was one of the first years that, like, on Spotify, old music was streamed more than new music.
Wow.
Because
Really?
people are just going back to the old songs, because
That's actually crazy.
yeah, it's a crazy
That's
stat
actually
when you think
crazy.
about it. And I feel like I'm the same way. I'm listening to old music.
But look, that's a good point. That's a crazy statistic. But
Yeah.
look at the way people are dressing. Everything's going back.
It is.
Everything. You're seeing a
go
lot
back.
of like of the 70s, 80s, 90s
Baggy
kind of clothes.
clothes
Yeah, the
and-
baggier clothes, more retro,
Yeah,
you
retro
know, like
look.
the I guess the newer generations kind of picked up a lot of that for whatever reason. That's the things I never kind of can grasp.
Yeah,
but
the newer generation knows how to appreciate, like, the past.
They
at
do.
least. That's
They do.
something I would say.
Yeah,
like,
they definitely
my,
do.
My parents will sometimes see, you know, me or my girl with, like,
Yeah, we
a
were super
Polaroid,
entitled.
or like
Yeah.
they'll see me with like a film camera and they're like, why the hell do you have
Yeah.
a film camera? You have an iPhone. I'm like, no, like the film camera is
Trust,
dope.
yeah.
And like that's what they had back in their day. They think
Well, we
a film
got a
camera-
little camcorder camera, and
The
dude,
camcorder's fire,
dude,
bro.
it's badass. I told him I took him to Kansas City, and I was like,
The camcorder's fire.
I had gotten it for him for Christmas, and then I'm like, dude, I'm gonna get one for myself too, because I just want one. It's sick. You just walk around like
Yeah.
that, and the content that you film is
It's like
is
listening
sick.
to a vinyl,
It's
like those
nostalgic.
old styles.
We just got
or-
my boy a vinyl for his wedding.
It's timeless.
We got him a badass record. We got him an NPR Mac Miller version, which I didn't even know they made that. I'm like,
Fire.
dude, that's sick.
That's fire.
So we got him that. We got him like a Red Hot Chili Pepper one. I got him a Bob Marley one.
Fire.
Which
That's a good collection
I
already.
can't, yeah. And then, you know, now he can build a collection from there. But
no, that's good.
it's just something about that
It's
old
tangible.
school.
I feel like
yeah,
it's
and you
tangible.
appreciate it more. Like you have to go to the record player, stick that thing on, and you're gonna sit there and you're gonna listen to all 8 songs.
And then you got to flip it, and then you got to bring out the other disc.
Exactly,
like,
man. It's not like, fuck it, let me just change it on to the next song. You know, like
It's
there's a
just-
you grow to appreciate things when you you're not like what's the word, like almost like brain dead, you know, like this is so easy and so convenient.
The endless scroll. You just scroll
And you
and
go and
scroll
you're
and
like, all right,
scroll
just
and
put the
scroll
song in
and
the
scroll
playlist, and it's good. It's convenient. It does look. I love Spotify playlists and all the stuff that they do.
It is good.
But there's nothing like a record. You sit there and you appreciate the hell out of it because, like you said, you have to go there, flip it, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It is
timeless.
crazy. I'm still kind of mind blown by that stat. But
yeah, that's crazy.
one of the things that you were, that we were talking about too was the creativity, right? And it's something that, and I have it here, and I actually wanted to bring it to you because I thought you would be a person that
Definitely.
would appreciate it. You could try it now. I have more in my house too, so if you want, I can give you some to take. But these guys approached me. It's called Magic Mind. I started taking them. I want to say, I think it's been like 2 weeks now that I've been taking them pretty much every day in the morning. You could take it with like coffee, like on, however you drink it. Do you drink coffee or no?
I'll take a little shot here.
You know what? Then this is actually perfect for you because it's super low in caffeine. I think, let me see. I don't know if it says it on here, but it's very low in caffeine. It's got green tea, so it's not very strong on the caffeine side, but it's not really an energy thing. It's more kind of focus, mental clarity. It's supposed to enhance kind of like your creativity.
I like that.
They boost energy and focus, crush procrastination, elevate mental clarity.
I'm gonna need those in the studio.
And I was gonna say, maybe you do this or you go like, take it 5 days in a row before you go in the studio and just see how you feel. I kind of felt something within like the first day of using it. Obviously they talk about placebo effects and things like that. I'm not a big person where like I take something and I'm already kind of thinking about it. I kind of go in with like an open mind. But it's got really good ingredients. It's like it's healthy as shit. It's got olive oil,
My grandma used to
ashwagandha.
tell me anything that's green is good for you. So the fact that
That's
it's
true.
green,
Get your greens. Exactly.
It's probably good for you.
Lion's mane is like a big ingredient that people are pushing. It's been lab tested by a million different labs apparently, and they came down with this recipe, and it actually tastes good. Like it's not like you take it and it tastes shitty. So I mean, if you want to taste it, if you want to drink it later. In the morning tomorrow.
Are you supposed to like chug the whole thing, like one shot?
I usually just I drink it like in 3 sips.
That's what I was saying, maybe like a little sip.
Yeah. And you want to have it cold. Like I think that's
Oh no, it's pretty good.
No, it's good. It actually tastes really good.
I've had some of these like similar like, little energy shots, and they taste
nasty.
kind of.
Yeah.
No, I'm about to drink the whole thing.
I don't drink it. It's good. I personally have been using it now for a few weeks, and I do see a difference.
Wow.
They say, it helps you where you're not going to have that crash later in the day. You have like prolonged energy throughout the day. Your
good
mind's
vitamins
sharper. Obviously, you got to eat healthy and exercise, all that stuff. Like they're not saying like you take this, like your life's going to change forever.
They got passion fruit in it. That's why it tastes good. I'm going to need some of these.
Dude, I'm telling you. And I'll connect you with some of the people there. But I've been taking it, dude. I love it.
No, it's far.
It's been one of those things where you kind of, just something feels a little bit different, And I think obviously the longer you take it, the more
it's easy to take
beneficial.
Too.
And it tastes good, bro. So I'll hook you up with those. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, I mean the biggest thing for me, when it comes to people like yourself that are aspiring artists is like the risk taking, right? Like it is a risk, and I think the biggest kind of obstacle for people is the fear, right? Like the fear is like, I want to do this, and then you give yourself a million reasons why not to do it, right? Instead of a million reasons of why you should do it, right? Like we always look at it from a completely different lens of almost like the pessimistic side versus the optimistic side. The view of hope and the view of like, this actually could work out for you. How, like you making this decision, how have you kind of told yourself and almost convinced yourself like, hey, I'm making the right decision outside of like, I might not be making money right now. I might look like an idiot to somebody out there, right? Like, all these crazy thoughts that people tell themselves, like how do you kind of, one, work with your mind on convincing yourself that you're making the right decision and just, keeping the more optimistic point of view?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, number one, I think you gotta love it, right? Like that's the biggest thing. You just gotta love it. I remember falling in love with hip hop music when I was 3, 4, 5, and my sister was playing 50 Cent and Eminem, and I was like, what is this? Like this sounds different than everything else, and I like it. And I loved it. If you do anything, you have to love it. Whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a business owner, you're a fitness person, anything. I think number one, you gotta love it. Because if you don't love it,
what are you doing?
it's not gonna go far.
Is it really worth it?
And I also think having a support system is important. Also, I think having that positivity where, you know, if maybe you didn't have the best day, or maybe if you facing a specific challenge, you have someone that can give you advice, someone that can be there to pick you up, to motivate you. Because if I didn't have a good support system, I don't know how far I would be going along with this, right? So if you were just completely alone, like you might not really do it. And there's always fun in having that support and inspiration.
It is. It was something that we mentioned on the last one. Was that we like to win, right? Everyone likes to win, and it's a good feeling to win. But how much better of a feeling is it when you win with the people around you?
Oh yeah.
Right? Like you win, they're winning, like we're all winning together. You know, like that is like next level satisfaction.
It's crazy. I remember my first concert. It was already a year ago here in Miami, and obviously the concert was great. The performance was amazing, right? We sold out I think 150 tickets, and it was a successful show. And it was being on stage for the first time. It was almost like speechless, right? Like you can't explain that feeling, seeing the crowd, everyone vibing to your music, and performing the songs that you spent so long creating. It's very rewarding. But I think the best part for me was when the performance ended, because then I get to see my mom and my dad, and they come on stage and they give me a hug, and they tell me how proud I am. I get to see my girl and give her a hug and a kiss, and her tell me how she is, and my friends, right? Like everyone there, just that support and having that, I think, is one of the most rewarding feelings.
Absolutely. You need that. Obviously you give yourself a certain level of like, hey, you're doing a good job and motivation, but having that external, you don't want to be dependent on the external validation, but it is a good feeling to know like, hey, the people that you care about most are right there with you, and they're happy for you, and that is, it's a feeling huge. That you want to take to your grave, bro. Like you want to know that the people around you are happy with the choices that you're making, and that you're happy. That's special. So before we wrap it up, I want to get the current lay of the land in the hip hop space. Like, what's the lineup right now? Top 5 artists out there right now.
That's a good question.
Because honestly, bro, I wouldn't even know who to say right now.
Yeah, the thing is OG97, OG97. No.
Oh, yeah. OG97 1, OG97 2.
But I just feel like right now is an interesting place, because I think a lot of the best artists are the same guys from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Obviously Drake, J. Cole, Kendrick, like those guys have been top 3 for the last 10 years. Future, Travis, I feel like those are the guys that still to this day, I mean...
Yeah, that no one's really kind of broken that, right? That's how it feels.
Reached that level. There's been a couple guys that have, flirted with it and have gotten close, but it's interesting. I don't know the reason for it. That could be like a whole other podcast episode, like the current state. But I mean, my 5 is probably the same 5 as always been. It's those 5, Drake, Kendrick, and Cole. I feel like those are the guys that have the best bodies of work, the best lyrics, the most innovative, the best music to enjoy, whether it's for substance or whether it's for having fun. And then Future and Travis are just, just turn up, like bangers.
It is crazy that you would think the music world would have evolved at some capacity. And obviously it has, but to your point, I don't think anyone's really been able to break that ceiling.
What I would say though, even though in hip hop they haven't broken that, I feel like in other genres, right, we're seeing
country music
we're seeing Morgan Wallen. These guys are becoming superstars where you may not have expected that. Like, you saw me bumping Morgan Wallen the other day.
I was about to say that, bro. Like, I think I even told you that day. I was like, bro, the last thing I would have imagined was. But you know what?
He's fire, man.
Morgan Wallen did that.
Yeah.
Luke Combs did that.
Yeah.
Some of these other artists, Zach Bryan and some of the other guys that are coming up too, they almost came with like a different tone. I think they marketed themselves really well too.
But they took like a modern approach to it.
They took a different, like Morgan Wallen has a song with Lil Durk.
Yeah.
And that Lil Durk had a audience that maybe would have never in a million years thought about listening to Morgan Wallen, and it was a banger. And that translated into a younger demographic now listening to country music.
Oh yeah.
What is it? Gen X? What is Gen Z?
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Gen Z
Yeah.
has been a huge amplification for country music.
One guy I really like, which I'm not listening to music all the time, but I do like his come up is Jelly Roll.
Oh yeah,
So I think
dude.
it's sick. He like won best new artist, and he's like 39, 40.
Dude, he's
like,
a beast. He's got
his
a crazy
is
story.
crazy. Yeah, his
He's
story
got a
is
crazy
crazy,
story.
man. It's inspirational, and every time I see him talk, I'm like, man, like
He's
this
a
guy,
beast.
he loved it, right? He loved music. He changed from hip hop to country, became a changed man, and I mean, he's being true to himself, and
Exactly.
that's the most important thing.
That was the journey that was presented to him.
Authenticity. That's what we said earlier.
Exactly.
He's authentic.
That is the perfect definition of exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah.
A guy that, went through his journey of life, had his obstacles, his challenge and all that, and yet look where he ended up in all of this, right? Like, he's got a story to tell for the rest of his life, and he's got a huge fan base, and that's a pretty consistent theme across, a lot of people. They had some sort of adversity that led them to, to some level of success that you want to call it.
It's like climbing Mount Everest, right? The climb is the hardest part.
Exactly.
Once you get to the top, you're already there.
Exactly.
Getting up there is a challenge.
Yep. But I enjoyed this, bro. I'm glad that we did this. It felt good. I hadn't done something like this in a while. So I'm glad we did this.
I'm glad I was invited to come through.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, I really want to, like I said in the beginning of this, want to produce more of these, have more of these type of conversations. I've been communicating with a few other people to have these type of conversations, share their stories, and I just think there's a lot of value in it.
Yeah.
And I hope today brought a shit ton of value. So before we wrap it up, obviously, they can find you so people can consume your music.
Yeah.
Where can they find you? And then what's some of the songs that maybe they should listen to?
Rock with?
Yeah.
Spotify, Apple Music, right? Any streaming platform. OG97. You could listen to my music there. On Instagram, it's still OG_vibes. I've been trying to get the OG97 name, but it's taken. It's going to be, maybe one day we'll get that one. It's still OG Vibes. And for songs, essential songs, I think Puerto Plata is one song.
I love that song.
Yeah, that song slaps, and it's paying homage to my hometown in DR, so that one's special to me.
That's where I went through when I was in the DR. Yeah,
Puerto Plata's fire, bro. I love Puerto Plata. So that song is special to me. Another one that's probably important is I have a song called Regrets, which is another banger. I think it's one of the more thematic songs of mine, very conceptual. I think those are probably the two most important. If you want to get your feet wet, you start there, and then you start trickling down, right? You start finding the other ones and just listening to the ones you like, saving those, and that's a good starting point.
I like it. So thanks for being here, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Like I said, we're going to be making more of these, and hopefully having some more awesome guests like Oscar, like OG97.
Yes,
and if you guys have recommendations on guests, definitely let us know. But we're excited to continue this podcast that we had going on and continuously get this out. Right now I have it once here, once there. There's a lot of obstacles and challenges that happen behind the scenes, but something I think that was consistent on today's podcast was it doesn't matter, like do the things that you like and good things will come from it. And this is one of those things that I genuinely enjoy doing. So I'm excited to keep getting it out.
You got to keep doing it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, bro. Thanks.